Hello, this is Jen White with Digital Scrapper. A little less than 10 minutes from now, I'll be starting a live webinar we are calling Blah to Beautiful. If you haven't already done so, take some time now to download the pre-class materials. The download link can be found in the description of this event, and you'll also find it in the description of this video. In the download, you'll find a scrapbook page along with a cheat sheet listing the most common design no-nos. We'll talk about those in just a minute. After downloading, you'll also find an instruction sheet that asks you to compare the scrapbook page to the list of no-nos and see if you can spot the 5 or more no-nos that we'll be talking about in today's webinar. Also, while we're waiting for the webinar to start, I'd love to see who all is joining us today. So take a moment to drop us a line in the comments section. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them here before, during, or after the webinar, and we'll do our best to answer them during the time that we have allotted. And one more thing. If you get a chance, I'd love for you to drop by the event page and answer the poll that is pinned to the top. I can see from the comments that we have Oregon members. Hi, Loretta. Hi. And let's see, Ohio, hey, right next door to me. There's some Washington, and Kelly is here. Hi, Kelly. And, woo, a couple from Canada. I hear it's snowing in Canada. No snow here. It's a nice spring day. Let's see. What? Oh, yeah. Lots of good people. Oh, yay. Okay, there's no sound? Ooh, Trish, see if you can pop in and see if you can help Lori with her sound. Lori, I think you have to turn on there's a little button on the video that you click on and it turns on, but Trish might be able to help you with that. Or Jennifer. Jennifer's also on here. Let's see. Kansas City, Missouri. All right. Florida. Another Kansas City, Missouri. I go through Kansas City, Missouri on my way to Wichita, Kansas to see my nieces. Yeah. Good stuff here. Okay, if you are just tuning in, this is Jen White with Digital Scrapper demonstrating how to transform this scrapbook page right here on the side from blah to beautiful. This event is live, but with any live feed, it is very common to experience a time lag, which will be slightly different for everyone watching. I'll be starting the webinar at 9 a.m. Pacific, which is noon Eastern, and there's still time for you to download the pre-class materials if you haven't already done so, and take a quick treasure hunt where I'm asking you to compare the provided scrapbook page to our design no-nos list and see if you can spot 5 to 8 of them. Speaking of design no-nos, you may be wondering, where in the heck did I come up with this list? And is this list based on principles or preference? And who gives me the right to tell you that your scrapbook page has mistakes on it? Well, first of all, this list of design no-nos comes straight from the Design Beautiful Pages class in our classroom. But I don't want this no-no list to give you the idea that our Design Beautiful Pages class is all about telling you what you're doing wrong. In fact, the class itself is quite the opposite. In Design Beautiful Pages, we take 12 amazingly jam-packed lessons to show you exactly how to create beautiful scrapbook pages every single time by following our 7 principles of design. And just as the name suggests, this class, as well as our list of no-nos, is based entirely on principle, not preference. Now, okay, many of you listening now have the same nagging thoughts swirling around in the back of your brain. You don't like to be told that something on your scrapbook page is wrong. I totally get that. In fact, you think that it's darn right rude of me to say so. But stick with me here. Linda Satgas, the mastermind behind the Design Beautiful Pages class, explains the concept of wrong like this. If you had spinach in your teeth, would you want me to point it out? Or would you want me to save your feelings from being hurt and or assume that you want to have spinach in your teeth? My hope is that those of you following the teaching on this site will trust me and my team enough to be a friend that we can tell you that there's spinach in your teeth without you taking it personally or being offended. We only have good intentions in our hearts. Now, if you feel like you are missing something or you would just like to see the replay later, you'll find it here on our blog next week and on this scrapbook or on this Facebook event page. And just take a watch out for our newsletter for any details. And we're going to get started in just a minute or two here. Let's see. More from Canada. And let's see, North Carolina. Nice. Let's see, Henderson, Nevada. Ooh, hi Linda from Henderson, Nevada. Connecticut, Arizona, Florida. Nice. Springfield, Illinois. Yes. Janet Cook's here. Hi, Janet. Oh, let's see. More Arizona. Trish is helping with any sound issues. If anybody needs help, just holler in the comment section and she can help you there. And she says it's a little bit echoey. I'm not sure there's anything I can do about that, other than it's just bouncing off the walls here in my room. But sorry, so if it's echoey, it's just, oh, I see. Maybe there's a, hold on a second. I might be able to fix that. Boom mic. Or maybe not. We turn that one down. All right. There seem to be two, and hopefully that will fix it. Let me ask Trish. Okay. Let's see here. Who else got just a little bit till we start? All right. Good. Trish says it's better. Glad we got that fixed. Thanks for pointing that out. Let's see. Just a couple more minutes till we start. Awesome. All right. We got Texas in the house. Pennsylvania. All right. Look at this. Nice. Glad you have all joined us. All right. Well, let's see here. We can get started. All right. Welcome to Digital Scrapper's first ever live event. I am Jen White, coming to you from Northern Indiana. And in the comments of this event, you will find the helpful assistance of Jennifer Juris in Washington, Trish Rausch in Colorado, and several members of our community team from all over the U.S. For the duration of this webinar, I'll be working here in expert mode of Photoshop Elements, but everything I'm saying also applies to Adobe Photoshop, unless otherwise noted. The scrapbook page provided for you in the download does not contain any layers, so you won't be able to follow along exactly with me. Instead, just sit back with your cup of tea. I have mine here. And, there we go. There we go. Sit back with your cup of tea and see if the no-no list from the treasure hunt matches up with what you came up with. If you'd like specific instructions for anything that I'm doing with the webinar later in the day, I'll post a download to a manual. Okay, I'll start here by quickly creating a composite so that I have a snapshot for later comparison. That was not supposed to be there. Okay, so what I'll do is on the top, I'm going to click on the very top layer that is visible to create a composite layer, and then press Shift Control Alt E. On a Mac, that's Shift Command Option E, and that creates a composite layer, and then I'm going to hide that layer. We're just going to use that layer later. Now I'm going to go down and click on the background layer. So without further ado, let's get started transforming this scrapbook page from blah to beautiful. And here we go. When looking at the scrapbook page, it's interesting to take note of where your eyes go first. You may be wondering why it should even matter, and here's why. In our Design Beautiful Pages class, we learned that the most important part of every scrapbook page is the photo. Now, I say that every scrapbook page, and that's true, but with one exception. The art journaling pages are pretty much devoid of all design principles, but this is not an art journaling page. So when looking at this page, tell me, where does your eye go first? For me, my eye is being drawn to the orange background paper, not the photo. The color in this paper is not only clashing with the colors in the photo, it's also clashing with the rest of the elements on the page. And that is why design no-no number 1 is, there we go. There we go. Paper from different color families. It might help to ask yourself, does the paper I'm choosing complement my photo or does it distract from it? And if you're finding that your background paper is a distraction from the photo as it is here, here's a quick solution. In the Layers panel, I am going to activate the background layer and then click on the Create New Fill or Adjustment Layer icon, and get the spinning wheel. This is a great time to get a spinning wheel, isn't it? Okay, and click on Hue Saturation. In the Hue Saturation panel, which in Photoshop is the Properties panel, click and drag the saturation slider to the left. I don't even have to reduce the saturation all the way in order to see a huge improvement on this page. If the paper still appears too dark or too light, you can change the lightness. Now this paper has a neutral tone, and neutral is always a safe bet. So here it was before, and here it is now. I'm thinking much better. Now let's ask the question again. Is the paper a complement to or a distraction from the photo? Personally, I'm still a little on the fence. The color of the paper is no longer grabbing me, but the pattern still is. So, for that reason, overwhelming pattern paper is one of the bonus no-nos for this webinar. Why is it a bonus, you might think? Well, it's a bonus because some might argue that this no-no is based partly on preference instead of principle. And they might be right. But regardless of where you stand on the issue, if the pattern takes your eye off the subject, then the pattern has got to go. And the solution is simple. We will just replace the paper. Now remember, as far as background papers are concerned, safety lies in neutral tones. Here is a background paper that has a much smaller pattern. It still contains a pattern, but it's just much smaller, and it could be considered slightly feminine. So it's perfect for the subject of this new page. So I'm going to click with the Move tool and drag this paper onto the new page, holding down the Shift key. And there it is. Now I no longer need these other layers, so I'm going to click and drag them to the trash. So here it was before, and here it is now. Finally, the focus of this scrapbook page is right where it should be, which is on the photo, which is what we'll talk about next. Okay, if you're just now tuning in, this is Jen White with Digital Scrapper, transforming this scrapbook page from blah to beautiful. As the basis of this webinar, we are using a collection of no-nos, which are avoidable design mistakes taken from our Design Beautiful Pages class. It's currently available in our classroom if you want to check it out. So now that I've put the focus of this scrapbook page back on the photo where it's supposed to be, I can see that the photo is suffering from the number one problem of scrapbooking, which is photos that are too dark. I get it. It doesn't just happen to you, it happens to me too. I get so caught up in the subject of the photo because it's usually something or someone that I love that I easily overlook the fact that the photo is way too dark. So here's what I've started doing on my scrapbook pages. Regardless if I think the photo is too dark or not, I've made it a habit to lighten all photos before calling a page finished. That way I can instantly decide which I like better, the lighter or the darker. Also, keep in mind that if your scrapbook page is going to be printed, the printed page will almost always produce darker photos. So making them a little lighter than your preference is good practice. Here's one way that you can quickly accomplish the task of lightening a photo for quick comparison. In the Layers panel, I'm going to click on a photo that I want to lighten, which is this one right here. Then press Ctrl-J, Command-J on a Mac to duplicate, and then clip the layer down. Then, in the Layers panel, change the blend mode from normal to screen. How does that look? To add more lightness, duplicate the screen layer and clip it down as well. Now, you want to watch out here for blown out areas. This is starting to get pretty light. So if it's a little bit too light, you can reduce the opacity of one or more of the screen layers until you like the look. I like it right about there. You can also and then if you end up not liking the look at all, you can always click and drag those layers to the trash. So to see the before, you would click on the visibility icon of the screen layers. There it was before, and here it is now. I'm going to stick with the now. Also, I'm going to merge down these layers for this next step, because if you were able to take some time to compare the scrapbook page to the list of design no-nos in the download, you may have also decided that it would be better if the photo was cropped. And here's why. Track with me for just a second. What's the most important thing on a scrapbook page? It's the photo or the photos, right? And if you look at this photo, what's the subject? Well, it's the little girl and her auntie smiling and having fun. Do I need the buildings in the background? In this case, no. Cropping the photo is not a matter of preference, it's a matter of principle. You want the subject of your page to be at its very best without any unnecessary distractions. Here's a quick way to crop a photo after you've already got it set up on your scrapbook page. First, I have merged those layers together. Then I'm going to create a duplicate. And then I'm going to clip that duplicate down. Now I'll get the transform options and click and drag on the corner handles of the bounding box until the subject is much more zoomed in. You can also click and drag inside the bounding box to reposition. When you're satisfied, click the check mark to commit. Okay, here it was before, and here it is now. I'm definitely taking the now. So one more time, if you're just now tuning in, this is Jen White with Digital Scrapper demonstrating how to transform this scrapbook page from blah to beautiful. Here is the page that we started with, and here is what it looks like now after fixing just 4 specific and easily avoidable design no-nos. The no-nos that I'm referring to, as well as the original scrapbook page, can be found as a download in the description of this video. In the download, you'll also find an instruction PDF that contains a direct link to our fantastic Design Beautiful Pages class, along with an exclusive savings coupon code. If you have any questions whatsoever during this webinar, feel free to leave a comment and we will be happy to help. Okay, the third big no-no that I'm going to tackle on this scrapbook page is probably the second most common one found on digital scrapbook pages. And that's probably because it's so easy to overlook. I will turn that on here for you. The shadowed elements below graphic elements no-no is a lesson on the layers panel. The position in the layers panel is important, especially when it comes to shadows. Let me show you this graphic. When thinking of shadowed elements in your layers panel, think of them in terms of a V, where the biggest shadows are at the top, the smaller shadows are lower in the panel, and the elements with no shadow at all are near or at the bottom. Here's how that's playing out on our scrapbook page. First, I'll zoom way into this scrapbook page here and reposition. This scribbly overlay contains no shadow, nor should it contain one, whereas this big flower does contain a shadow, as it should. So, referencing the diagram I just showed you, the overlay should appear in the layers panel below the flower. But in this case, the overlay is above the flower. But here's the good news. Fixing this no-no is easy just by moving the overlay into its proper place in the layers panel, at or near the bottom. I will place it down here below the shadowed leaf, but above the paint, which has no shadow. So here it was before, and here it is now. Much better, right? Now, speaking of shadows, you may or may not have also discovered another no-no that I'm including as the last bonus of this webinar. This no-no is the too small shadow on bigger 3D elements no-no. Let me explain. On careful inspection, you can see that all three shadowed items on this scrapbook page, the photo, the leaf, and the flower, they all have very similar drop shadows applied. But why is this a no-no? There are two big reasons. Think about the flower in comparison to the photo. If they were both sitting on your desk, would one be casting a larger shadow than the other? I say yes. The photo is much thicker and taller than, or the flower, is much thicker or taller than the photo. And in reality, things that are taller cast bigger shadows. Now, the second reason is hinted at by studying the shadows that are already appearing within the flower itself. Notice how the inner petals of the flower are casting large drop shadows. When shadowing an element like this, you want to try to match the shadows that are already present. Now, changing the shadow of this flower is very simple. I'll just double click on the effects icon, and then I'm going to up these settings. I'll change the size to 50, the distance to 20, and I'll also up the opacity, which is something that you can often do on larger elements. Then I'll click OK. Okay, if you didn't see that change, here it was before, and here it is now. That's quite a difference, and it looks much more realistic on the page. Now, before going on, I am going to create another composite image and then turn that off, because the fourth big no-no that I'm seeing on this scrapbook page should have been one that has been bugging you from the start, especially if you've already taken our Design Beautiful Pages class, where we talked extensively about the 7 principles of design, like flow, proximity, and all about trap space and snuggling things up. Well, the fourth .design mistake that is on this scrapbook page is placing title randomly. And here's why. The flow of this scrapbook page starts and moves here at the photo and then goes down to the journaling. On a classically designed scrapbook page, best practice is to place the title within that flow instead of off by itself, serving no purpose except confusion. Let me move this title to a much better spot and you can see for yourself. Find this. There's two parts to this title, so I'm going to click on the first part and then shift click on the second part. Now it's all active. Then with the move tool, I can click and drag the title down here. Now, the title is in its rightful place right beside the subject of what it's referring to. Now, if you're like me, this leaf is now bugging you. But this, my friend, is not preference, or is preference. It's not principle. But I gotta move it down so it doesn't drive me crazy. So I'm going to activate that, and I'll just use my keyboard arrow keys to nudge that down so that I can pretty much read the title still. And then one more thing real quick. I'm just going to adjust one more thing. Again, this is preference, not principle, but look what happens when I make the one word in this title a little bit larger. I'm going to change the love and click and drag to make it larger and rotate it a little bit. Maybe a little bit too much. Nudge it over with my move tool. Click the check mark to commit. And now all of a sudden, I have removed some of the potential for trap space, and as an added bonus, the varied title size adds interest to the page. How about that? So one last thing before moving on. Some of you have all of a sudden become uncomfortable with the amount of white space that's present on this scrapbook page. But don't tune me out. I'm not saying that every beautiful scrapbook page has to have white space. That's a preference, not a principle. Filling up the page is perfectly fine, but when doing that, keeping things connected will go a long way to help make the page beautiful. All right, we're now on to the last of the 5 big no-nos on this scrapbook page, which is, drumroll please, shadows on journaling. Believe me, I totally understand your desire to do this. You want your journaling to stand out and be more readable, especially if it's on pattern paper. I get it. But shadowing your journaling is not the way to go. It's bad design, and it actually makes your journaling harder to read, not easier. So first, I'm going to remove the drop shadow of this journaling and see what a difference that makes. I'm also going to zoom in here so you can see that better. Here we go. All right, here it was before, and here it is now. Now the first solution that I have as an option for you is all about the layers panel. First, you'll want to make sure that the journaling layer is above any non-shadowed or 2D objects that could be hiding it. In this case, the journaling is below the paint and the overlay. So I'm going to click and drag the journaling above those two things and watch how it changes. Okay, some of that paint was hiding it, but now it's behind. Now here's another thing that you can do to subtly remove distracting background behind a type. And this is just one way you can do it, and it's quick and simple. So in the layers panel, I'll need to make sure that the journaling layer is the active layer. Then holding down the Control key in Windows or the Command key on a Mac, click on the Create a New Layer icon. This will create a new layer below the journaling layer. Now, we'll get the brush tool. In the tool options, open the brush picker and choose a soft round brush from the default brushes. If you're using Photoshop, you would choose a soft round brush from the general brushes. Also, I'm going to set the opacity to 50% and the mode to normal. We're going to leave the size as it is now, and if you're using Photoshop, you would also set the flow to 100%. Now on the scrapbook page, use your left and right bracket keys to make the brush smaller or larger. We want to make the brush about the same size as the type. Now on the document, first let's open the color picker. I'm going to click on the foreground color chip, which opens the color picker. Then on the document, click to sample a color that's behind the type. There's only white and tan behind this journaling, so I'll click on the tan and then click OK. Now on the scrapbook page, click anywhere that there are white dots or paint, at least there's white dots in my case, behind this journaling. You want to kind of do this randomly. You could create just plain stripes behind it, but a random clicks and something is much less noticeable when you get done. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. After I click several times, you would want to take your time in doing this. I'm mostly just clicking, not clicking and dragging, because again, that creates a more random look, and you want it to kind of blend in a little bit, which is why the brush is set at 50% and not 100%, because then you can have varying degrees of opacity when removing some of the dots behind there. Okay, here's what it looked like before, and here's what it looks like now. When you're turning the layer on and off several times, you can usually find the areas that you need to continue clicking. So like I might just do a couple more here, maybe a little bit more here. Anyway, here it was before, and here it is now. What do you think about the difference? I'm going to zoom out here and go back up and show you that this is what we started with. This is the scrapbook page that we had before, and here is what it looks like after fixing 8 of the design no-nos. Here's the before, and here's the after. This is the blah, and here's the beautiful. So let me see if you had any questions. Oh, yes. Dory didn't like where the purple leaf was. Hopefully I fixed that for Dory by moving it down a little bit. I could actually even move it down a little bit more. Some people don't like to have elements over their titles. I personally, it's just a preference, like to have my titles just a little bit covered, but only enough so that I can still read it, but it kind of looks like it's in the background a little bit. Yes, Wendy Jordan, I see that they said that you pointed out that there are blue spatters over the title. And yes, again, that would be preference, not principle, but I could easily move the blue the paint below the type like this. Oh, and let's see, it wasn't the paint, it was the overlay. And then it would look like that. But again, because that they are both unshadowed elements, it doesn't really matter which is over. It kind of creates a more artsy look if you have the overlays above the type. So yes, that was a perfect thing to point out. Some people would prefer it to be under, and some people prefer it to be on top. I kind of go both ways. So that was a great question. I don't see anything else. Let's see here. Thank you, Val. I'm glad you think it looks much improved. Perfect. All right. Well, this concludes this webinar. Again, if you need help or are looking for any links whatsoever, you will find them in the instructions where the PDF, there's a PDF included in the download where you can find the description of this, anyway, where you can find all the links that you need And there's a link there that you can contact us if you need anything. And there you go. This has been Jen White with Digital Scrapper, and I hope you all have a very lovely day.